Every time you bring a guest on this show, you exploit them and spread whatever problems they have to the whole world.
Now keep telling yourself that. You can go.
Who do you think you are, huh? No, I'm not finished talking to you.
Yeah, you are.
No, I'm not.
Yeah, you are.
He's an entertainer who has studied psychology and who doesn't even have a license to practice anymore.
I just tell people to get real. I'm not even a psychologist.
You both play games with other people for a living, but today you play a game for your life.
Carried onto the stage because I can barely walk.
Herzog said that he showed up to the studios completely sober. His father was with him, has corroborated that. You know, Herzog says that he found the alcohol in the dressing room.
For years, Dr. Phil wasn't just daytime TV noise. He was framed as the authority, the guy people trusted when life was cracking at the seams. Dr. 𝗱𝘆𝘁𝗶𝗺𝗃 built one of the biggest talk shows in American history, no question. By his own words, the show was sold as the most complete mental health platform TV had ever seen. Millions tuned in every day to watch chaos unfold, struggling families, addicts, young adults, and people deep in emotional crisis sitting right across from him. He came in with blunt advice, zero hesitation, and rock-solid confidence, like he always had the final word. The show didn't stay locked to TV screens either. It blew up online fast. Clips flooded YouTube, TikTok, and Facebook, pulling in billions of views over time. Everywhere you looked, Dr. Phil was trending, like nothing could touch him. But when you slow down and really study what was happening, that clean image starts cracking because a strange pattern keeps popping up again and again. Dr. Phil wasn't just helping people anymore, he was turning some of society's most vulnerable individuals into content. And not quietly either. This was loud, polished, monetized, and built perfectly for algorithms. That's when a lot of people get hit with a detail that stops them cold when they research deeper. Dr. Phil is not a licensed psychologist.
Who doesn't even have a license to practice anymore.
He was licensed decades ago, but that license expired and he never renewed it. As stated, he was licensed decades ago, but that license expired and he never renewed it. He was never authorized to practice psychology in California, where the show was filmed, and that part gets brushed over way too easily. Every guest had to sign legal waivers clearly stating they were not receiving professional therapy, just advice. That loophole is the backbone of the entire show, yet he still presents himself like the final authority, speaking in absolutes like there's no room for doubt at all. He openly breaks down people's behavior in front of live audiences, labeling patterns and pushing confrontations they clearly don't want on national TV.
However we got here, the number one thing is you have to save her from herself.
If I want to get out of my bed, let me get out of my bed. I don't care. Get off of me. Get off of me.
All of this happens while he's technically not accountable as a practicing clinician.
Of making bad parental decisions that have put her in this position.
Get off!
Which alone should raise serious eyebrows. But it doesn't stop there.
At some point, you have to look back and say, I did everything I could to get her out of the life.
You're doing fantastic.
Because Dr. Phil also became one of the highest paid figures in daytime television history. And he never hid how hard he leaned on the audience's trust to cash in.
Humiliating, screaming at, sleep depriving.
Dr. Phil's literally kidnapping these children and sending them to these programs where he's making this money.
Over the years, he promoted questionable weight loss programs, sketchy supplements, and even medications that medical professionals later criticized.
I never give up, even if it means tracking down in his own hometown.
Can I ask for cooperation?
I'm not leaving, bro!
When you build credibility around mental health, those endorsements hit different. And that's where the ethical lines start getting real blurry fast. But the real breaking point for a lot of people came when former guests started speaking out.
Hi, I'm Todd.
One of the most disturbing cases centers on Todd Herzog, a former reality TV star who appeared on the show in 2013 to talk about his alcoholism.
How drunk do you think you are right now?
An entire bottle of vodka.
Keep going. 0.263.
Years later, Todd came forward with claims that made people seriously uncomfortable. He said when he arrived at the studio sober, he walked into his dressing room and found bottles of vodka waiting for him, out in the open, not hidden, not some accident, but placed there. According to Todd, he drank them, and that moment alone raised massive questions about what was really happening behind the scenes. Then, by his own account, things escalated even further.
Show up to the studios, and I'm sober, and then they pull me into my dressing room. There was 2 liters of vodka. Parents, I drank the entire bottle.
Todd claimed staff gave him Xanax before pulling him onto the stage, setting the scene for what millions would later watch unfold. As he described it, the situation felt controlled, reckless, and completely stacked against someone already struggling, which shocked a lot of people once this story started spreading.
If that's true, that's not entertainment, it's straight up endangerment. Mixing alcohol with benzodiazepines is medically dangerous, potentially fatal, and there's no spinning that fact. What makes this claim even harder to brush off is Todd saying that when he came back to the show later, the exact same setup was there again. Same bottles, same environment, same pressure. That doesn't sound like mistake or bad timing at all. That sounds like production manipulation, plain and simple. And then there's another case that flipped internet culture on its head in 2017. A 13-year-old girl named 𝗱𝘆𝘆𝗶𝗺𝗀𝗃 appeared on Dr. Phil following serious conflicts with her mother. And the episode didn't just go viral, it detonated online. Catchphrases spread everywhere, memes flooded social media, and the clip racked up hundreds of millions of views in no time.
That way you don't ever get hurt. It's not like you want to be accepted and held close, and then when people don't, that hurts. So if you come in and alienate everybody and you're pissed off and you push everybody away and you're like a porcupine, then you don't ever feel the sting of rejection.
𝗱𝘆𝘆𝘆𝗃 became famous overnight, and the internet ran with it fast. But once the cameras shut off, things didn't magically get better for her. 𝗱𝘆𝘆𝘆𝘆 was sent to Turnabout Ranch, a so-called rehabilitation center in Utah.
And it's a way to go through life if you have low self-esteem and low self-worth.
Yeah.
And I think that 𝗱𝘆𝘆𝘆𝘆 clearly has low self-esteem and self-worth, which is really sad because I think she has so many great.
And that decision raised serious concerns later on. According to multiple former residents who spoke out over the years, what went on there was deeply disturbing and hard to ignore.
Qualities, I think she's obviously very smart, but I do think she's on a self-destructive course right now.
Years later, 𝗱𝘆𝘆𝘆𝘆 finally broke her silence and described an environment that sounded nothing like healing or support. She spoke about teens allegedly facing harsh physical discipline, intense psychological pressure, public humiliation, long periods of isolation, and neglect that left lasting scars. These weren't rumors floating online. These were detailed accounts that shocked a lot of people and forced many to re-examine how situations like this were handled behind the scenes. Basic hygiene was reportedly restricted. Simple things most people take for granted. Singing and dancing were banned. Kids were allegedly forced into stress positions, and the place was so remote that getting out felt almost impossible. The isolation wasn't accidental. It added pressure, fear, and control, which made the situation feel even darker for the teens stuck there. Utah, as it turns out, has extremely loose regulations when it comes to troubled teen facilities. Oversight is minimal, inspections are limited, and accountability is thin at best. And here's the part that really made people pause. Dr. Phil's show didn't just send one young person to places like this. It repeatedly promoted these facilities to desperate parents watching from home, presenting them as solutions while serious concerns were quietly ignored.
Malnourishing, humiliating, screaming at, taking her against my will. It's basically like kidnapping.
A violent death later occurred at Turnabout Ranch, involving a teen with a documented history of suicidal ideation and substance withdrawal conditions. The ranch had previously claimed it would not accept someone in that condition, yet the teen was admitted anyway. That case ended in tragedy, and according to reports, the remaining teens were allegedly told never to talk about it, which only deepened the concern. And then, life just went on. Filming continued like nothing happened, and this is where the story shifts from questionable TV into something far darker.
Because if you're Dr. Phil, surrounded by producers, lawyers, and years of industry experience, there's no realistic way you didn't know something was seriously wrong, especially when parents sign release forms allowing communication between the show and these facilities, especially when allegations kept stacking up, especially when lawsuits started surfacing, yet the show continued sending kids there anyway. That's not confusion or lack of awareness. That looks like indifference, and it forces a hard question that a lot of people still can't shake. So the real question hits hard. Was the goal ever truly about helping people, or was it about creating viral moments, emotional meltdowns, and neat little redemption arcs that played perfectly on camera? Once you spot that pattern, you can't unsee it. Guests who clearly don't want to be there, teens begging not to be filmed, adults who are visibly unstable, all pushed into confrontation while the audience claps like it's entertainment. Dr. Phil stays positioned as the calm, controlled authority while chaos explodes around him. Chaos that just happens to boost ratings. This wasn't random, it was formatted, structured, and repeatable. And once you understand what happened with the teens in those facilities he kept recommending, the adult cases start hitting different too. What once looked like tough love TV starts feeling a lot more like humiliation dressed up as help.
One of the clearest examples people point to is what happened with Shelley Duvall in 2016. Shelley Duvall, best known for her role in The Shining, appeared on Dr. Phil in an episode that was heavily promoted weeks in advance. Even the promo clip felt disturbing, a 32-second out-of-context snippet blasted everywhere, framing her as delusional, unstable, and disconnected from reality before the episode even aired.
Will you let me get you to the doctor so you can get checked out?
If you so much as attempt to get my moon mole, I'll kill you.
This wasn't subtle, and it definitely wasn't educational, it was bait. Shelley was clearly struggling with mental health issues and deep, unresolved grief, especially after losing people she was close to in her life. Any licensed mental health professional will tell you that grief, paranoia, and isolation can show up in complicated, unpredictable ways. But instead of handling that with real care, the show packaged her pain as spectacle. Actors, directors, and fellow artists who actually knew Shelley spoke out almost immediately. Many of them publicly begged people to boycott the episode, accusing the show of exploiting a woman who couldn't fully consent to being framed that way. And that word right there matters a lot: consent. Just because someone signs a release doesn't mean they truly understand how they'll be portrayed once editing, promos, and headlines get involved. Dr. Phil, of all people, should understand that. Yet Shelley was sent to a treatment facility thousands of miles from her home in Texas, not nearby, not familiar, not supportive. 3 days later, she left and went back home. If the goal was really help, why uproot her so aggressively? Why turn such a vulnerable moment into content instead of care? And this wasn't a one-off either. Another case later resurfaced involving a teenage boy brought onto the show because his parents were worried about his video game habits and violent behavior during filming. The teen repeatedly said he wasn't comfortable getting psychological help on television. He asked not to do it publicly, and he looked visibly distressed the entire time. But the show kept pushing forward anyway. At one point, his tone and demeanor noticeably shifted, almost like he was repeating something he'd been coached to say. Maybe that was coincidence, or maybe it wasn't, but the moment made a lot of viewers uneasy. And when you line these moments up, the discomfort, the pressure, the public framing, a clear pattern starts to form. Guests who resist the narrative don't get to control the narrative. Add to that the lawsuits that followed. In recent years, former guests have sued Dr. Phil and CBS, alleging humiliation, misrepresentation, and emotional distress, which only added more weight to the criticism. One woman appeared on the show to speak about abuse she endured, only to watch the focus suddenly flip onto her own mental health struggles. Instead of being supported, she was framed as unstable. That's not just insensitive, it reshapes how millions of viewers see her. When you really watch the show, Dr. Phil's role is rarely collaborative. He doesn't sit with uncertainty or complexity. He asserts, interrupts, redirects the room, and the moment a guest pushes back, the studio energy shifts, the crowd murmurs, the framing changes, and suddenly the guest becomes the problem. That's television psychology, not therapy. And behind the scenes, things don't look much better at all. Former employees and insiders have described a production environment where the goal wasn't healing, it was drama. Emotional spikes, explosive reactions, viral moments, and clips designed to live forever online long after the episode aired. That might be how daytime TV survives now, but when your material is mental illness, addiction, and trauma, that strategy turns ethically dangerous fast. Then there's Dr. Phil himself. Despite constantly reminding guests that he's an expert, he hasn't been licensed for years, and that contradiction keeps coming up. He frequently name-drops celebrities, positions himself as the ultimate moral authority, and frames disagreement as ignorance rather than discussion. Former acquaintances have described him as controlling and dismissive behind closed doors, which only adds another layer to how power was handled off camera. His first wife allegedly described him as domineering and emotionally cold, which added another unsettling layer to the image he presented publicly. She passed away years ago, so her account can't be cross-examined, but it still contributes to a growing picture of a man who demanded control in both personal and professional spaces. And this is where everything circles back again, to the facilities. Even after lawsuits, even after reported deaths, even after repeated allegations of abuse, Dr. Phil's show kept moving forward like nothing happened. In some cases, it continued promoting troubled teen programs such as Provo Canyon School, a facility later publicly accused by numerous former residents of isolation, harsh physical discipline, forced confinement, humiliation, and neglect. Former teens have described being strip-searched upon arrival, forced to shower under supervision, punished over minor issues like wrinkles in bed sheets, locked inside small concrete rooms for days, denied bathroom access, and witnessing violence. Some said they were pressured into silence through fear and intimidation. These aren't random internet rumors. These are sworn statements, lawsuits, and first-hand testimonies that paint a deeply disturbing picture. And yet, Dr. Phil positioned himself as the gateway, the figure parents trusted most. Parents watching at home thought, if Dr. Phil recommends this, it must be safe. That kind of trust is powerful, and when it's misplaced, the damage isn't theoretical, it's lived, real, and lasting. That leads straight to the uncomfortable truth at the center of all this. Dr. Phil didn't just accidentally step over ethical lines, he built a system where those lines were blurred by design. Legal waivers instead of licenses, advice instead of therapy, entertainment instead of accountability. A format where exploitation could always be reframed as help when things went wrong. And when criticism showed up, it was deflected. When scandals surfaced, they were minimized. When lawsuits appeared, they were quietly settled or dismissed. The show ran for years because it worked, it made money, it created viral clips, and it built the Dr. Phil brand. But brands eventually collapse under their own contradictions, especially when audiences start asking the questions no one wants answered. Questions like, why are the most vulnerable people always the ones paying the price? This isn't about cancel culture or one bad episode. It's about a long-running machine that normalized turning suffering into spectacle. And once you really see that machine clearly, it becomes almost impossible to look at Dr. Phil the same way again. That's the uncomfortable reality behind the man who told millions of Americans he was there to help them. When you zoom out and really look at Dr. Phil's career as a whole, one thing becomes impossible to ignore. None of this happened by accident. This wasn't a few bad guests, a couple of unfortunate facility recommendations, or one episode handled the wrong way. This was a system that worked exactly as intended for a very long time. The show didn't survive for decades because it genuinely helped people. It survived because it performed help. And that distinction matters more than people want to admit. Real therapy is slow, uncomfortable, and honestly kind of boring. It doesn't wrap itself up in 42 minutes with applause, dramatic music, and a neat resolution. Real mental health work happens off-camera with privacy, boundaries, and accountability. Dr. Phil offered the opposite: instant clarity, instant judgment, instant heroes and villains. Audiences loved it because it felt good to watch someone else's chaos get neatly packaged and solved. It felt good to believe suffering could be fixed with a firm lecture and a few buzzwords. It felt good to trust that the man on stage knew exactly what he was doing. But the truth is, the show was never really about solutions. It was about controlling the narrative. Dr. Phil didn't just guide conversations, he dominated them. He used authority language, absolute statements, and moral certainty to flatten complex human struggles into bite-sized TV moments. And when guests didn't cooperate with that framing, they were subtly repositioned as the problem. Guests who comply with the framing are treated like they're making progress, while anyone who resists gets labeled as dishonest or broken. There's no space for nuance in that setup, and there's definitely no room for dignity. What makes it even more unsettling is how closely this mirrors the influencer-era machine we see today. Dr. Phil didn't invent exploitation for engagement. He perfected it long before YouTube even existed. He figured something out early that modern creators now build entire careers on. People will watch almost anything if you convince them it's for their own good. That's exactly why his show translated so easily into viral clips, why his YouTube channel exploded, and why the content kept pulling millions of views even as public opinion started shifting. The algorithm doesn't care about ethics, it cares about retention. And Dr. Phil mastered retention by putting people at their most vulnerable on display. The most disturbing part isn't that this happened once or twice, it's that it kept happening even after the consequences were undeniable.
Even after reported deaths, even after lawsuits, even after survivors spoke out in detail about abuse, humiliation, and lifelong trauma, at that point, ignorance stopped being a defense. If you recommend facilities accused of serious abuse and neglect, responsibility doesn't disappear. If you platform suffering for profit, you're not just observing the damage, you're complicit. If you build an empire on other people's pain, you don't get to hide behind good intentions, period. And yet for years, Dr. Phil did exactly that. He positioned himself as the calm, reasonable adult in the room while everyone else was framed as chaotic or broken. He brushed off criticism as jealousy or misunderstanding and leaned hard on legal technicalities instead of moral responsibility. I'm not treating them, I'm advising them. I'm not responsible for the facility, I'm just suggesting it. They signed waivers. But here's the truth about power, it changes everything. When you have that level of influence, technicalities don't absolve you. Parents trusted him, guests trusted him, audiences trusted him. That trust carried real weight, and when it was abused, the consequences didn't land on Dr. Phil, they landed on people who were already struggling. What makes this even harder to accept is how unnecessary all of it was. He didn't need to exploit addicts to be successful. He didn't need to parade people with mental illness for shock value. He didn't need to send teens to remote facilities with documented histories of abuse. He already had fame, money, influence, and reach. But the machine needed fuel, and that fuel was suffering. That's why so many former guests say the same thing. Once the camera stopped rolling, the care stopped too. No long-term follow-ups, no accountability, no responsibility for what happened after the episode aired and the internet moved on. And maybe that's the most damning part of all. Dr. Phil wasn't reckless, he was consistent. He made the same choices over and over because they worked. The audience rewarded them, the network profited from them, and the consequences stayed delayed and diffused for years, until they didn't anymore. Public opinion shifted, survivors found each other, receipts stacked up, patterns became impossible to ignore, and the image finally cracked, not because Dr. Phil changed, but because people started looking past the performance. This isn't a story about cancel culture or hindsight bias, it's a warning about what happens when entertainment puts on the mask of care. When authority goes unchecked, when confidence gets mistaken for competence, and visibility gets confused with virtue, the damage spreads fast. Dr. Phil didn't just expose people in crisis, he exposed how easily audiences can be convinced that exploitation is acceptable if it's framed as help. And that lesson reaches way beyond daytime television. It applies to influencers, platforms, and anyone who builds power by putting others on display. Because sooner or later, the bill always comes due. That's the real legacy behind the Dr. Phil empire. Not empowerment, not healing, but a blueprint for monetizing suffering at scale, hidden behind applause, authority, and a calm voice telling you it's all for your own good.
Dr. Phil wasn't reckless, he was consistent. He made the same moves again and again because they worked. The audience rewarded it, the network cashed in, and the consequences stayed delayed and scattered for years until they didn't anymore. Public opinion shifted, survivors found each other, receipts stacked up, patterns became impossible to ignore, and the polished image finally cracked. Not because Dr. Phil changed, but because people stopped buying the performance. This isn't about cancel culture or judging the past with fresh eyes. It's a warning about what happens when entertainment puts on the mask of care, when authority goes unchecked, when confidence gets mistaken for competence, and visibility gets confused with virtue. Things get dangerous fast. Dr. Phil didn't just expose people in crisis, he exposed how easily audiences can be convinced that exploitation is okay if it's framed as help. And that lesson goes way beyond daytime TV. It applies to influencers, platforms, and anyone who builds power by putting other people on display. Sooner or later, the bill always comes due. That's the real legacy of the Dr. Phil empire. Not empowerment, not healing, but a blueprint for monetizing suffering at scale, hidden behind applause, authority, and a calm voice telling you it's all for your own good. And once you see it, you really can't unsee it. So what do you think? Does this change how you look at Dr. Phil and the power TV personalities hold behind the scenes? Or do you think people are being too harsh looking back now? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I actually read them all. And if you like this breakdown, hit that like button, subscribe, and share this video with someone who needs to see it. I post more deep dives into YouTuber drama, influencer controversies, and stories mainstream media avoids. This story isn't over, and knowing the internet, the next chapter is probably going to get even messier. I'll see you in the next one.